This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. It's a passport disaster that has added extra stress to a Portage-La Prairie family's Christmas vacation. Not only were the documents delivered late, but once they arrived, it turns out they were the wrong passports. As CBC's Josh Crabb reports, the family's frustrating ordeal has left them with more questions than answers.
You can put those in. Check.
Kristen Harley, her husband, and their 2 daughters are busy packing their bags ahead of their family vacation December 22nd to the Dominican Republic.
We should be getting excited for our trip. It's our first big family trip. We haven't been able to get excited.
Up until this week, Harley's husband Brett and their daughters Davy and Kit still didn't have the passports they applied for in person in mid-October. On Wednesday, 3 passports arrived, but they belonged to a family from Ontario.
Our jaws dropped. Our minds were blown. It was, I couldn't believe it.
They told the passport office, contacted their local MP, and Harley tracked down the family from Ontario on social media. She let them know her family had received their passports, thinking the documents for her husband and daughters were sent to the Ontario family.
She got back to me right away and was very grateful that I had hers, but she'd not received any passports.
Employment and Social Development Canada, which oversees Service Canada, didn't explain the error, but says lost or misdirected passports are very rare. Portage-Lisgar Conservative MP Brandon Leslie has been helping the family and says the situation raises questions and concerns.
I was frankly outraged and was on the phone as soon as Passport Canada was open this morning to discuss with them how this could happen.
Harley's husband drove into Winnipeg from Portage Thursday morning to return the Ontario family's documents and reapplied for emergency travel documents for his family. The family's original passports arrived in Portage by courier Thursday afternoon, and on Friday the family was told they could use those ones to travel.
Christmas is supposed to be a fun time. I know it's stressful for everyone, but this has just been a lot of added stress.
Harley says her family has spent hours on the phone with Service Canada and estimates the ordeal has cost them a couple $1,000s in missed time at work and travel costs. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Students and teachers in the Pembina Trails School Division are still in the dark as to when full services will be back up and running. Everything from computers to clocks have been impacted for more than 2 weeks since a cyber attack shut down the division's entire network. Now students and staff are learning some of their information may have been compromised. CBC's Arturo Chang has more on the network-wide outage.
I take pictures all around the city.
Sebastian Kelly has been taking photography since grade 9. It's now one of his favorite subjects. He tried to show some more of his school projects, but hit a wall. This week, Pembina Trails School Division sent an email to parents saying students could no longer use their school email passwords. On Thursday, it warned staff and students may have had their personal information accessed by an unauthorized third party. A teacher in the division says most schools still have no internet whatsoever, and that staff lost access to files, lesson plans, and tools for assessing students. Quote, "Everything you would normally use in a classroom has been kneecapped," unquote. CBC is not naming the teacher because he fears it could impact his job. The outage took down computers, phones, printers, clocks, and PA systems. Sebastian says the one at his school didn't work for almost a week.
I even heard some teachers, what if there's a lockdown? What if there's certain emergencies that we need to know about?
We're going to see more stuff like this.
David Gerhardt is the University of Manitoba's head of computer science. He says small institutions like Pembina Trails can be an easy target.
And it all really comes down to making sure that the software in the system is as up to date as possible and training your users, because it only takes one person clicking on a bad link in an email to have the whole thing come crashing down.
Sebastian says teachers have done their best to adapt and that some systems have been restored. But still, some of his education has taken a setback.
How are we going to finish our work in for more tech-focused classes? How are we going to finish our work? Even some teachers were like, sorry, we can't do nothing today. It's discouraging.
Arturo Chang, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A Winnipeg woman accused of making videos of torturing animals and selling those videos on the dark web has been denied bail. CBC's Caitlin Gowerluck has more and a warning. Some of the details are disturbing.
Irene Lima looked down at the floor as a judge denied her request for bail in a Winnipeg courtroom on Friday. But the reasons behind that decision can't be shared because of a publication ban on the hearing. The update comes after Lima and her co-accused, Chad Cabex, were charged in October with killing animals and posting videos of the torture on the dark web. Police say more than 75 animals were filmed or photographed being tortured and killed earlier this year, then posted on a dark website the couple allegedly profited from. Last month, the pair were charged with even more offenses, including bestiality, accessing child pornography, and possessing proceeds of crime under $5,000, after police combed through their devices and found hundreds of photos and videos. Police say they also found messages between the accused, talking about wanting to torture a child. They believe there was a sexual component involved. Cabex was previously out on bail, but was brought back into custody following his latest charges. Caitlin Gowerluck, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Brandon Police Service has debuted its new holding cell facility. It's more than double the size of its old detention center. Chelsea Kemp has that story.
Brandon Deputy Police Chief Greg Hebert unlocks a new holding cell at the police's headquarters. It's one of 17 new cells that's been in use since September. Hebert says the spaces are specially designed to keep people as safe as possible.
It's just simply, a safe place for them to be getting sober, and others, are facing charges, so they'll appear for bail hearings in the morning.
The expansion of the detention area at Brandon Police Headquarters began in 2022. The service received nearly $9 million from the province for the project. Hebert says the police needed more detainment cells because they could no longer take people at the nearby Brandon Correction Center after COVID-19. The new facility can house more people while also having a paramedic on site 24/7 to assess any medical needs. Brandon Mayor Jeff Fawcett says first responders are working together to make the city safer for everyone.
And that will eliminate a lot of the emergency room stays, where we have two police officers with somebody in there has to wait, and they can be in there for quite some time. Now we'll be able to bring them here. The paramedic is able to take care of that, and our staff sergeants get back out onto the road.
Hebert expects to see anywhere from 3 to a dozen people staying overnight in the new cells. He says there are 5 old cells available if they ever need an overflow space. The whole facility, including the attached garage where officers can bring in detainees, was finished last week. Chelsea Kemp, CBC News, Brandon.
Skaters, get ready to lace up. The Riley Family Duck Pond at Assiniboine Park opens tomorrow. People can get outside and enjoy the winter weather on the Duck Pond rink. The warm-up shelter beside it will be open daily from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Visitors are reminded that hockey sticks and pucks are not permitted and to stay off the ice when plowing and flooding is underway. The park's cross-country ski trails and toboggan hill are also open for the season. Weather specialist Riley Lachuk in now. And Riley, lots of people going to be getting out on that duck pond, I'm sure, in the coming days.
Yes, and it'll be great weather for it. We're looking at temperatures climbing as we get certainly into next week, the Christmas week, but certainly toward New Year as well, which I'll talk about a little bit later in the program. As expected today, minus 18 in Winnipeg this afternoon. This for our daytime high. Minus 20s through Brandon and Dauphin, a bit cooler back to the west after a cold start this morning across parts of southern Manitoba. The Paw minus 21, minus 24 in Thompson, looking at another cold night across much of northern Manitoba and even into parts of the south. A few little stray flurries, some light snow through southwestern Manitoba through the afternoon hours, but we have cleared since then. So we are looking at some clear periods, clouds build back in overnight tonight, maybe a few scattered flurries through the overnight hours in Winnipeg. Minus 19 through the overnight hours, minus 16 by morning. Couple of scattered flurries, and Brittany, we're looking at clouds featuring in our forecast as we get through the weekend. I'll have your weekend forecast when I come back.
All right, looking forward to it. Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
Well, if you're getting into the spirit of giving, Winnipeg's Niña shelter is collecting donations. The nonprofit Indigenous-led shelter helps people out in Winnipeg's North End. Donations are being taken at 190 Disraeli Freeway. The holiday donation drive is accepting things like gift cards, hygiene products, new underwear and socks, and other winter gear. Each donor will receive a chance to win Winnipeg Jets or MTC tickets. Holiday cheer is being spread far and near, but one organization says hundreds in Winnipeg First Nation are being left with a lump of coal instead of holiday hampers. More after the break. A Manitoba company trying to play Santa for hundreds of First Nations families is instead getting Scrooged. It's all because a funding request was denied by the federal government. It not only leaves an Inuk-owned supplier out tens of thousands of dollars in groceries, but 200 families from Titasqueat Cree Nation without Christmas hampers. Karen Pauls explains.
Thank you so much for this contribution. It's amazing. Are you a hugger?
Yeah. What started as an unexpected disappointment has turned into a holiday miracle. Tessa Blakey Whitecloud says she was overwhelmed and grateful to get a donation of 7,000 pounds of food to feed clients at this Winnipeg emergency shelter.
The intention was for this to be in community, and their original plan didn't work out, and Siloam can be a space to make sure it's still going to the community who needs it.
The food was originally ordered by the Titasqueat Cree Nation, meant to be Christmas hampers for 200 of its members. But after the food, much of it perishable, was ready to be picked up, this Inuk-owned and operated supplier got some unexpected news.
I was in the back of our warehouse the entire day packing those hampers. And at 4:45 in the afternoon, there was an email sent to me saying, we've had an unfortunate circumstance involving some funding, and we need to cancel the hampers.
We were told that they had put in an application to get the funding to support their off-reserve members, and that the application had been denied.
The funding request was made under Jordan's Principle, a court-ordered program meant to fill gaps in government services and supports for First Nations children. The Office of the Minister of Indigenous Services Canada confirms this request was denied because it didn't meet the criteria, saying in part, seasonal gifts for families are not something covered through Jordan's Principle, as it is not a service the government provides, nor is it within the spirit of why Jordan's Principle was created in the first place. We must use public dollars in responsible ways. Some requests were not urgent for children nor necessities.
Our First Nations children and families are in crisis.
First Nations leaders and advocates say federal funding delays are putting children at risk. The Canadian Human Rights Tribunal has ordered Canada to deal with the backlog, estimated at 140,000 cases.
Many of our communities right now are being denied by the government on not being reimbursed.
For example, in Alberta, funding delays have led to layoffs of educational assistants. In Quebec, money for sports and recreation is at risk. In this case, the hampers were donated to Siloam Mission to make sure the food was used before its expiry dates.
We're happy about that, sad about how it happened, but at the same time, good fortunes for all.
Still, his company is eating the $20,000 bill. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
For Siloam Mission, that extra food will help feed hundreds this holiday season. It's a big deal for people who aren't always sure where or when their next meal is coming and where it's coming from. CBC's Zubina Ahmed learns more about what donations like these mean.
There you go. Thank you.
Siloam Mission is marking the holidays with its annual Christmas lunch. Around 700 plates of food are being served to people experiencing poverty or homelessness. Tessa Blakey Whitecloud, CEO of Siloam Mission, says months of preparations go into serving holiday meals.
We've got the stuffing, we've got the cranberry sauce, we've got coleslaw, like you name it, it's here. We've got buns and baked goods and desserts from Hutterite communities. It's just a fantastic day to bring people together to celebrate and build community.
Whitecloud says the turnout this time is higher than in previous years.
We are seeing more seniors entering homelessness for their first time, and we're seeing more newcomers who are arriving experiencing homelessness. And so really important that we figure out how to adapt to meet those needs.
Meanwhile, Niña, a relative's place, an Indigenous-led shelter service, organized a holiday donation drive at the center today. The event encourages compassion and generosity during the holiday season. Executive Director Frank Parks says they're accepting donations of essential items.
So we're looking for warm clothing, but also things like gift cards, socks and underwear, warm clothing, toques, mitts, parkas, scarves. Anything that would, help somebody that's, living on the street or a relative that could use that. And
Park says they have partnered with other local agencies like Linking Hope, Bear Clan, and the Downtown Community Safety Patrol for the donation drive. They will be distributing these items all through the day. Zabina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Riley's back in now. Riley, we know those donations needed more than ever, whether it is for warm winter clothing, because it has been very, very frigid and cold out, or whether it's been food donations or people's times. The Christmas cheer board really getting a big need during this time. We know how many they're feeding in their food banks every single month, that escalating, and Manitobans known to be very, very charitable.
Yes, especially with time when it comes, it takes time to deliver all of these donations, like the hampers and stuff too.
So if you have, maybe you don't have the money, the monetary funds to be doing it, but if you can give your time, that's worth just as much.
Exactly.
Donations for clothing going to be in big need over the next coming weeks, but a little bit of a reprieve coming. But for now, if you have extra, maybe a toque or a scarf, you might want to tuck that away to donate.
Yeah, we are looking at a bit of a warm-up, Brittany. And it sounds weird to say that winter officially begins tomorrow. We've been kind of stuck in it. Yeah. I want to give you some stats here, because if you think that the days have been really short here in Winnipeg, for parts of southern Manitoba. Look at the shortest day of the year for a place like Churchill, for example. Sun rising at 9:07 tomorrow morning and setting at just 3:22 in the afternoon. The winter solstice, of course, is when we in the northern hemisphere are furthest away from the sun. So that's 6 hours and 14 minutes of daylight in Churchill tomorrow. Compare that to just over 8 hours in Winnipeg tomorrow. But hey, once we get into Sunday, things start to warm up from there, and the days also start to get longer from there. So, looking at Futurecast as we get into the weekend, not a lot to talk about aside from a little bit of snow into parts of northern Manitoba. Through the morning hours, this brings us a slight chance of some scattered flurries generally across southern Manitoba. Otherwise, clouds feature throughout the day as we get through Saturday and really into Sunday. Not a lot to talk about aside from how cloudy it's going to be. Not to say that into Saturday and Sunday we won't get some peaks of sunshine, but generally speaking, we are looking at a bit of a cloudier period as we get through Saturday, Sunday. Getting a bit more sun into Monday, but certainly looking at clouds sticking around as we get through the next several days. Looking at this from a snowfall accumulation perspective, really not a lot to talk about. Trace amounts in some of those scattered flurries, and I don't mean that it's going to flurry everywhere across southern Manitoba, but you might run into some scattered flurries through the morning hours tomorrow. A bit more in the way of accumulation through places like Flin Flon into the Pas. We could see even up to 4 centimeters of snow. Looking at our upper level atmosphere, this is why we are going to see a bit of a warm up here. We have this big ridge starting to form in the jet stream, and this is going to allow a lot of that warmer air from the south to flow right into the southern prairies and even into parts of northern Saskatchewan, northern Manitoba, looking at warmer than seasonal temperatures. And this pattern sticks around. You can see most of Western Canada and even most of Ontario into the warm sector of this as we get by mid-week next week. So we are looking at a significant warm up in place, and we could even longer range models indicating we could even get above freezing closer to New Year's. Starting tomorrow morning, though, minus 14 in both Swan River and Dauphin. Wake up temperature at minus 16 in Winnipeg, so far cry from where we have been the past couple of days. Up to minus 9 tomorrow afternoon. Southeast winds 30 gusting to 50, so a bit of a breezy one through the day on Saturday. Minus 7 into Sunday, and then we jump up, Brittany, as we get closer to Christmas. They're up to minus 2 on Wednesday with the gusty south winds.
Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
We have much more to come after this break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Stay with us. Manitoba has confirmed its first case of avian flu in 2024. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency says the disease was detected at a commercial poultry operation in Portage-la Prairie last month. Similar cases have been recorded since 2022. The virus, also known as H5N1, is highly transmissible among domestic birds, but it's also spread to mammals. Among people, the Public Health Agency of Canada says the risk is higher for those who have unprotected exposure to infected animals. A primary control zone has been set in the area where the disease was detected. More than half of California's dairy herds have now been exposed to the avian flu. It's a worrisome spread that has some people calling it COVID for cows. Cameron McIntosh checks in on the risk that avian flu poses to people in the U.S. and here in Canada.
In California, a run on eggs leaving shelves empty.
They say it's because of the bird flu.
That's what Angel Miranda's suppliers keep telling him.
It's been like this for like 2 weeks.
Bird flu, or H5N1, is a virus. That's it under a microscope. Spreading in the U.S., still rare in people, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control confirms about 60 American cases. The first severe one this week in Louisiana. California has declared a state of emergency, including chicken culls, as the virus spreads in poultry and dairy cattle, exposing those who handle them.
Right now, it's coming from generally commercial situations, farm workers with a lot of exposures who need to have PPE.
In Canada, there's only been one confirmed human case, a teen hospitalized last month in BC with a strain closely matching local wild birds. It has not been found in Canadian cattle or Canadian milk, which is pasteurized. Outbreaks in poultry are mostly contained to BC, where there have also been culls.
I would recommend that people not get too freaked out about the food supply at this time, but do take precautions because this virus can be found in both milk and in eggs.
Most concerning, say experts, multi-species spread. The World Organization for Animal Health estimates it's in 500 bird species and about 70 different mammals, raising fears it may adapt more readily to humans.
Influenza virus, one of the things it likes to do or can do very well is change and adapt. That becomes a problem.
Prompting this call last month from the World Health Organization.
What we really need globally, in the US and abroad, is much stronger surveillance.
Canada is testing, but health authorities warn that eggs in poultry should be cooked and that anyone working on farms or handling dead or wild birds must take precautions. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A lot of last-minute political maneuvering in Ottawa today on the last Friday before the holidays, with the leader of the NDP saying his party will vote to bring down the Liberal government when Parliament resumes. And the Prime Minister shuffling his cabinet after a week that saw his Deputy and Finance Minister resign. Ashley Burke has the latest.
He's left you alone in the cold. Where is he?
The Prime Minister missing in action, leaving his newly minted ministers to do the talking.
The Prime Minister is not here today to answer questions and address Canadians.
We were just with him inside and had some great conversation as to the work that we have ahead of us.
Justin Trudeau speaking to Liberals, but not to Canadians, leaving them in the dark and his cabinet stuck answering a big question only he can answer.
What assurances has the Prime Minister given you that he will stay on until the next election?
The Prime Minister was quite clear that he has a choice that he's reflecting on.
Inside Rideau Hall, Trudeau chose to name 8 new members of cabinet, including David McGuinty as Public Safety Minister. Ruby Sahota is in charge of Democratic Institutions, and Nate Erskine-Smith Housing. Trudeau also changed 4 ministers' jobs as he faces growing pressure from almost 20 MPs, all publicly calling for him to step down.
Why do you show confidence in the Prime Minister?
Prime Minister's the Prime Minister.
As the shuffle began, the NDP's leader released a surprise letter, saying in the new year his party will vote to bring this government down. The Conservatives' leader seizing on that pledge, calling for Parliament to be summoned back.
We have a guy here who has lost control of everything, and yet he clings to power.
Then, after meeting with cabinet, and for the first time since his finance minister's stunning resignation Monday, Trudeau surfaced in front of journalists.
Are you considering proroguing?
We just had an excellent cabinet meeting that was almost entirely focused on the Canada-US dynamic.
Trudeau then walked off and ignored reporters' questions about his future. He didn't say if he's done reflecting and has made up his mind about if he'll step down. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Toronto police are investigating an overnight shooting at a Jewish school. It happened 2 days after a firebomb attack on a synagogue in Montreal. This afternoon, Canada's new Minister of Public Safety condemned both attacks.
There is no place in Canada for this kind of conduct. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the Jewish community. This is a very, very serious matter for us and our government.
Police arrived at the Toronto school and found several bullet holes in the front of the building. It was empty at the time. It's the third time perpetrators have targeted the girls' school this year. The second attack happened in October on the holiest day of the Jewish calendar. The firebomb attack on the synagogue in Montreal was the second in just over a year. Firefighters doused the flames quickly and found an incendiary object inside. Hate crimes against the Jewish community have soared since the war between Israel and Hamas militants erupted 14 months ago. Saskatchewan's Court of Appeal has given a thumbs up to a decision that an emoji is contractually binding. The ruling could have widespread implications when it comes to legal contracts. Ashwara Duda has the details.
Saskatchewan's highest court says it agrees with the notion that a thumbs up emoji like this one can be as legally binding as a signature. The original court decision last year made headlines around the world and was all over social media. Now the Court of Appeal has upheld the decision, although not unanimously. So let's back it up and look at how it all went down. The case involves a farmer in southern Saskatchewan who had signed a contract on several occasions with a grain buyer to sell his crop for a locked-in price, and that deal was often confirmed by text message. In March 2021, the grain buyer from Southwest Terminal texted the farmer to confirm a contract for 85 tons of flax at $670 per ton. But this time, instead of responding with a yes or looks good, the farmer Chris Octor replied with a thumbs up. A lot of farmers had trouble fulfilling their contracts that summer because of drought, and many didn't want to because prices jumped. And that fall, Octor never delivered the flax. Southwest Terminal sued Octor for breach of contract and damages. Last year, Justice Timothy Keene called the thumbs up emoji a non-traditional but valid response. He ruled a thumbs up emoji sent by text message could be considered a signature and amounted to a contractual agreement. Octor appealed that ruling, arguing the thumbs up only confirmed he received the contract but didn't agree to it. He has now lost that appeal. 2 judges backed the thumbs up as a valid signature, but Justice Brian Barrington Foote is not buying it. He says using the text message address or metadata as a source stretches the legal meaning of a signature too far. Octor still has to pay over $82,000 to the grain buyer. Bottom line, be careful with those thumbs ups. They might sound rude to Gen Z, but you might be signing a contract in the eyes of the law. Ashwarya Duda, CBC News, Saskatoon.
There are growing calls to test for scurvy in BC. This as new data reveals nearly 700 people in that province have had a vitamin C deficiency in the past decade. Yasmin Gania reports.
At this Saanich nonprofit, it's all hands on deck to give people healthy food.
We do get fruits and vegetables donated, but not a lot of them, and they go very quickly. So as soon as they're out in the fridges, they're gone. People don't have access to fresh fruit and vegetables.
That reality is in line with data obtained by CBC News about vitamin C deficiencies. Nearly 700 people in BC had low levels of vitamin C from 2014 to November of this year. The deficiency caused by a lack of fruits and vegetables.
Canada has wide access of healthy, nutritious, fresh foods. We have a good healthcare system. We should also sort of suspect that everybody can get these very preventable diseases treated or at least not even get them in the first place.
The numbers are prompting doctors to call on BC to test for scurvy, a disease brought on by severe vitamin C deficiency. It likely makes you think of sickly sailors from hundreds of years ago. But in recent months, 27 scurvy cases were confirmed in a northern Saskatchewan community, along with one case in Toronto. Symptoms of scurvy include large patches of bruising and bleeding gums. Left untreated, it can lead to spontaneous internal bleeding, the destruction of red blood cells, and eventually death. The research shows that patients recover very quickly when they get vitamin C.
It's very treatable, but you still have to know that it's there in the first place.
The Ministry of Health says it only has data about low vitamin C levels and doesn't know how many of those cases are scurvy. It says it doesn't collect scurvy data because it's not an infectious disease and notes that not everyone with low vitamin C levels develops scurvy. Yasmin Raneya, CBC News, Vancouver.
A frightening attack today at a school in the Croatian capital. A teenager stabbed a 7-year-old girl to death. Anxious parents waited outside the school that's for children between 7 and 15. Authorities say a 19-year-old former student walked in earlier in the day. They say he killed one student and stabbed and injured 3 others and their teacher. They say the attacker had mental problems and that police prevented him from killing himself. A weaker La Niña is expected to hit the prairies this time around. After the break, we find out what that means. Stay with us. Forecasters around the world are awaiting the return of La Niña. The arrival of the climate phenomenon caused by cooling ocean waters is imminent, and it can have big impacts on prairie winter weather. But as Ethan Williams reports, La Niña may not pack the same punch this time around.
Jens Petersen is loving this weather. The president of the Regina Ski Club says it's much better for skiing than last winter.
My very first day of skiing last winter was February 14th, Valentine's Day, and I got in exactly 3 weeks of skiing.
A strong El Nino weather pattern made last winter much warmer and drier than normal on the prairies. But El Nino is over, and the snow and cold are back, and that could be a trend this winter. Waters in the equatorial Pacific near South America have cooled below average, and that means La Niña, El Nino's opposing weather pattern, is forming. It typically brings colder and snowier winters to the prairies, but there's a catch this time around.
This winter, we are actually expecting a pretty weak La Niña. We're not going to see necessarily the typical correlations between the colder and snowier winter and the La Niña signal.
But that doesn't mean winter will be a breeze, with this last month as evidence of that. But Environment Canada's winter outlook does show a better chance that December, January, and February will be warmer than normal on the prairies, unusual for La Niña events. Experts say the warming of ocean waters due to climate change can dull the cooling effects of La Niña.
This has sort of raised the bar for how much cooling of the ocean surface is needed to be called a La Niña. So what this is really telling us is that as the world warms, the conventional definitions of La Niña and El Nino are starting to become obsolete.
This La Niña is only expected to last until spring, with a return to a neutral pattern afterward. But it should be just long enough for Jens Petersen and his fellow skiers to enjoy their season, with all ski trails around Regina open and groomed. Ethan Williams, CBC News, Regina.
Lots of people in there already enjoying these winter temperatures. It is warming up, and
Yes.
I feel like maybe I have something to do with that because I'm flying out of town on Sunday, and it's warming up Monday, very soon after, so you're welcome.
You're going to miss all the warm weather.
Oh, well.
And it will last. And we're looking at a considerable warm-up, Brittany. Have a look at some of these numbers I'm going to show you. This is our 10-day temperature trend. Again, this is one model prediction on what our temperatures will do. So as I always say, when I show this particular graphic, don't take these numbers to the bank because a lot could change between now and then. So the weekend, we're looking at temperatures jumping above seasonal into Monday, -8. This particular model has us at -2 for Christmas. That's what I have for our forecast high on Christmas Day as well. And then we jump above freezing in the weekend after Christmas toward New Year's. And even New Year's, looking above seasonal for this time of the year, we should be at around -11. That's today's normal daytime high. So that gives you a sense of where things are headed. Next 10 days at least above seasonal for this time of the year. So not a bad day to get out for a dog walk tomorrow. But it will be a little bit windy as we get through the daytime. This is Hamlet's first Christmas. Thank you, Crystal, for sending this very cute picture in. Ready for Christmas, and I hope ready for that first winter. You can send your pictures to talkback at cbc.ca. So we're looking at -16 first thing in the morning with winds out of the southeast, 30 gusting to 50 by the afternoon. They'll stay strong into the evening. We'll start to see things backing off a little bit, though, once we get into the evening hours, -10 by supper time tomorrow. So kind of a tale of two provinces, or a tale of two regions of our province as we get through the overnight hours. Warm and cloudy across southern Manitoba, clear and cold into parts of the north. So overnight tonight, looking at -27s through Swan River and Dauphin, where we'll see a little bit more clearing, but a good chance out of some of that cloud cover of seeing a few flurries through the overnight hours. -24s through the Red River Valley, -25 in Kenora overnight tonight. Into northern Manitoba, looking at -27 in Lynn Lake, close to -30 for Thompson, as well as Churchill, -28 degrees overnight tonight. a few clouds, but we are looking at that cloud filling back in as we get through the day on Saturday, and even a few flurries through northwestern Manitoba. This does become a good chance of some light snow through Tuduli Lake, Thompson, even as far east as Gillam through the day tomorrow, looking at a few flurries or some periods of light snow throughout the day on Saturday. Into southern Manitoba, mostly cloudy skies. Not to say that we won't see a few peaks of sunshine tomorrow, but clouds definitely featuring as we get into Westman as well, -12 in Brandon by lunchtime. Climbing up close to -10 through the afternoon, fairly seasonal for this time of the year. Winnipeg -9, -13s and 14s into northwestern Ontario. Quick look at your forecast for Sunday, minus single digits above seasonal for this time of the year, -7 in Brandon, looking at -11 for Flin Flon, the Pas, -16 in Thompson. A little more sun once again into northern Manitoba, Brittany, as we get through the day on Sunday. Your 7-day forecast is coming up.
Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
What would you do if your child needed life-saving treatment and couldn't get it? Jeremy Bray's family is in that position, advocating for the 29-year-old who lives with spinal muscular atrophy. It's a struggle BC mom Susie Vanderwyk knows all too well. She's been helping the Bray family, and her daughter also lives with the fatal disease. She spoke with the CBC's Marcy Marcusa this morning.
Tell us a little bit about what it's like for you as a parent of an adult child now with SMA. What comes up for you when you reflect on the barriers that Jeremy and his family are up against here in Manitoba?
This is a very serious disease, and it's very impactful on the entire family. When we receive a diagnosis, and at the time when Jeremy and my daughter Holly were diagnosed, we were told there's no treatment and nothing we can do to stop the progression of this disease, which was eventually going to take our children. With SMA, you have mental capacity your entire life. That is completely normal, but physically, it's a degeneration of the nerves, and a person gets weaker and weaker with time. So they end up in a power wheelchair because they don't have the strength to push themselves, in a manual wheelchair, depending on the strength they started with. As the executive director, many of the patients that had more severe form of the disease, we're sending out newly diagnosed packages and following them up with end-of-life packages. For those of us that have watched a slower deterioration, like Jeremy and Holly, it's really difficult. It's difficult to watch other families go through it, and for ourselves to watch our child lose function that they've had.
I really critically want to understand how impactful the drug has been for your daughter and what difference it's made for her life.
Okay, so when the treatment became available for Holly, who is a couple years younger than Jeremy, so she was 25 years old when the drug came available, which was just under the wire for age of able to access risdiplam. She was going for her undergrad in university, and it took her almost 3 times as long to achieve her undergrad. When she started treatment, and this is the same with patients who are also on Spinraza, the other treatment for adults, that the disease is progressively, it is stopped, and the progression is stopped, and it actually reverses some of the effects of the disease. And these treatments are safe and they are effective, and people are accessing them all around the world. We're the only G7 country in the world not providing these 2 treatments broadly for all patients.
Well, when we hear the government here has talked about, that they've been leaning on the science that says that it's understood to be, these drugs are understood to be effective in 25 and under, and not in adults. What's your response to that when you look at what's happening other places?
The exact same data was supplied to Canada that was supplied to the rest of the world. And in spite of that, the rest of the world, so these countries that provided access, they still continue to collect data on those patients so that they could provide more and more proof of the value of these treatments. So we see patients, and they have the data that is published that is supporting these patients' access to the treatment. That data was supplied to Canada, and it's called real-world evidence. So when the Canadian Drug Agency, who is working on behalf of the provinces to assess drugs, looked at that data, they did not have the ability at that time to process real-world evidence, so it was denied. So the provinces that are standing by that negative recommendation, when we have ample evidence all over the world to support adults of all ages to access these treatments, it's a cop-out. We know that it's challenging for provinces to approve expensive treatments. We also know that there's support in place for the provinces. For example, the federal drug strategy funds that the federal government is providing to the provinces. $1.5 billion is being supplied to the provinces from the federal government to support access to treatment for rare diseases. That's in place. We know that the drug companies have worked out negotiations with the provinces. So that black box, we can't see inside, but we do know that these supports are in place for them.
Here's a look at the annual Cycle with Santa event as it left True North Square, cycling around the city, giving out items to folks in need. Riley's back after the break with a last check on our forecast. Stay with us.
Okay, one more weekend to go for before Christmas. So here's a look at a holiday shopping forecast. If you're heading out to do some shopping through the day tomorrow, prepare for a windy one through the day. On Saturday, at least, we're looking at -16 first thing in the morning. Maybe a few scattered flurries, slight chance, but I put it in there just because you could run into a few snowflakes. Cloudy, -12 by lunchtime, and -9, mainly cloudy as we get through the afternoon hours. So we are looking at -9 for our daytime high tomorrow. Southeast winds 30 gusting to 50, and then we jump above seasonal as we get through all the way into Wednesday, -2 on Christmas Day, south winds 20 gusting to 40. Again, not to say we won't see some peaks of sunshine, but certainly clouds featuring through Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. As we head into Thursday and Friday, closer to the new year, we're looking at highs jumping up above the freezing mark, -1 on the way for Thursday and 0 with a chance of flurries on Friday. Stockholm's underground rail network is unlike any other. It features unique works of public art and dozens of its stations.
It includes sculptures, rock formations, mosaics, paintings, light installations, engravings, and reliefs. The first artwork went up 7 years after the network opened in 1950. It's tonight's Daily Lift.
We have such a long tradition that we have been working with this ever since the 1950s. So we are soon celebrating 70 years. But also that even if the system is small, with only 100 stations, 94 of them have art.
Walk through cavernous halls painted in red and orange, and an entrance hall decorated with classical statues, replicas of those seen at a royal palace nearby.
One station features tall whitewashed tunnels painted with blue vines and flowers stretching from the floor to the roof. Thanks to the contributions of more than 150 artists, the rail system is often described as the world's longest art gallery.
It's beautiful.
That is gorgeous.
I like that.
Yes.
Really appreciate it as you travel.
We do.
Lots of people traveling. I'm going to be heading out west to see my family for the holidays, so it's my last day here.
I'm going to miss you.
I'm going to miss you too. We're so nice and close to each other. So we want to thank everybody who tunes in and spends their evening with us. And I want to thank Riley for being such a wonderful co-host.
Thanks.
He's going to be
You're the best.
holding down the fort while we're gone. Hope you guys all have a wonderful holiday. I'll see you in 2025.
I'll see you on Monday.